Hello, everybody. Welcome to Ttrpg Designer Spotlight, a special program where we uplift and showcase work of game designers, especially those with marginalized identities. And with that, I and this channel stand against genocide and ethnic cleansing and support all the oppressed peoples of the world struggling against injustice, imperialism, and colonization. Free Congo, free Sudan, and free Palestine. As usual, folks, as your host, I am Valiant Dorian. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I'm a TTRPG performer, GM, writer, and as you can see here, Twitch variety streamer. You can find me all around the internet at Valiant Dorian or at Otso SpiritBear. Please enjoy that lovely treasure I just set you on. And tonight I have the distinct pleasure of interviewing our amazing guest. He is an award-winning TTRPG game designer, consultant, and podcaster, crafting wonderful gaming experiences with games such as Babbling Stream, My Lover's Body is a Temple, and today's feature, Tboy Tummy Thursday. Now, before I get ahead of myself, Logan, please introduce yourself and where we can find you.
Sure, thanks, Val. Hi, yes, I'm Logan, he, him pronouns. I'm coming to you from Wurundjeri country, unceded lands of the Wurundjeri people here, also known as Melbourne in Australia. And you can find me, with the death of Twitter, which was my go-to for a long time, I'm kind of in lots of places and floundering to find where I want to actually be. I have a card, logantimmons.card with 2 R's, where it has all of my links if you want to find me on any platform you happen to be on. Usually breathing stories or breathing dash stories on any of the places that people are currently running to. Mostly on Tumblr these days, yeah.
That is extremely and incredibly trans of you to be like, I'm mostly on Tumblr these days. Amazing, but before,
Yeah.
Amazing, yes. Folks, if you use exclamation point Logan, you'll be able to get those links whenever you want. Thank you, Stream Elements, for finally working and not working for my last stream. I appreciate you. I'm glad that this stream has been made easier. Thank you all so much. Now, before we get right into it, Tboy Tummy Thursday is a one-page tabletop role-playing game of trans boys just having a chill time together on a Thursday. For more information on this game, please use exclamation point Tboy in chat. I'm typing it right now. And you will be able to get a link to its itch.io page. Go and support this lovely, lovely one-page RPG. And if you're enjoying today's designer spotlight, consider donating and leaving us a tip. The funds raised will be distributed evenly between myself, the tech producer, as well as our guest designer. Use exclamation point donate in chat to support us in that endeavor. Of course, my stream deck doesn't work when I hit the button. That's fine. We love tech. Amazing. And with all of that said, oh, are they attached to the square bracket? God damn it! I'm so upset. It's fine. Y'all know how to highlight and paste. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry for all the tech issues as usual. With that, let's chat about Tboy Tummy Thursday because we're both Tboys. We've got tummies, and this is for us. Sure is a Thursday.
Hey, triple threat.
Almost like I planned it this way. Almost like this was completely and utterly intentional. And
Oh my god.
As always, this is gonna be a very, very chill interview stream between 2 Tboys talking about trans tummies, and it's Thursday. And before we get into like the game, which is really, really fun and cool, I do want to ask you about TTRPGs in general. How did you get into the TTRPG hobby?
Good question. Funnily enough, and like you said, quite trans of me, it started with Tumblr. I saw a gift set of a Critical Role streaming their first campaign, and someone in the chat was like, OMG, this was the most intense moment. I was yelling, and I'm like looking at it, it's like 8 people sitting at a table. I'm like, what are you talking about? They're just sitting down at this table talking. What's so intense? Like, I don't get it. It's like, I guess I'll check it out, what they're talking about. And yeah, so my intro was Critical Role and Dungeons and Dragons, and watched their first campaign from start to finish. Was like totally entranced. And even, with the less than stellar sound quality at the beginning of the first campaign, no shade, they were just starting out. But yeah, it was like a method of storytelling and creativity that I'd never seen before. I mean, like the closest thing is like playing make believe when I was a kid, and I also had that love of fantasy from a young age as well. And yeah, this kind of the collaboration that exists and the story unfolding and evolving as it is being told, and having no idea what's going to happen next, and trusting the players, in that context, trusting the players and the GM to tell a story that everyone would find really satisfying and exciting. That was like mind blowing to me, that stories and creativity could happen that way. So yeah, I was like super into it. Joined a LFG, looking for game Facebook group, and found fairly quickly a long running campaign that it was just starting. Someone was like, "I'm about to start this module. Who wants to join? I'm looking for X amount of players." And that's the person who wrote was Haley, who's we now work together professionally in games.
So cute.
And she's also trans. We like Facebook stalked each other before we met, and we're like, you're trans, yay. So that was really nice. It's quite a queer group that we ended up pulling together. And that Dungeons and Dragons game lasted for like 4.5 years. We got all the way to level 20. So that was a pretty phenomenal first Dungeons and Dragons experience of having like a really great dungeon master, really queer friendly group. Quite flexible, and quite committed as well. Like we got all the way to level 20. So that's a very, very rare occurrence, and I'm very grateful.
So impressive. I was like, wow, what is this incredible collection, like fairy tale collection of people you have gathered regularly for a long-term campaign that went all the way up to level 20. As many folks in the chat can probably empathize with the scheduling difficulties of the true BBEG, really, and experiencing TTRPGs together as a group, truly. That's so interesting. It's so nice to like listen to all the different like origin stories. I made it sound like you're a villain for a second, but the origin stories of all these designers that I've interviewed, and Critical Role and like APs in general being a very, very common and probably accessible way for folks to find TTRPGs and then feel inspired to create in that space. So is that what inspired you to begin game designing then? Was the storytelling aspect of TTRPGs, or were there other aspects that brought you into the game design space? Because it's scary. Designing a game from scratch is pretty scary. How'd you get into it?
I mean, so yeah, well, Critical Role was my onboarding, and then I got onto Twitter for other reasons. I got on Twitter to follow Rachel Stott, who's a comic book artist who draws the 12th Doctor really well.
Yeah.
So I went on Twitter to follow her more and see more of her 12th Doctor art because he's my fave. And happened upon, I was like, I started following like Critical Role and Dungeons and Dragons related people, and then kind of stumbled into the indie scene and following a couple of people who were like, oh, like there's other games, and I was like, what? And found, I think this was right about the time that maybe the Sad Mech Jam happened, or it was just finishing.
Yes, I was
like 2019 or whenever that was.
Yeah, I was talking to Aaron about that.
That was massive. Yeah, so I think it was like I just managed to catch that wave, which again, really grateful for. And so I was like, oh, itch.io, what's that? And again, my brain exploded. There's like, even like today, there's tens of thousands of games. Even back then, there were still thousands of games that weren't Dungeons and Dragons, that were, different genres. That was already like something I hadn't super thought about. I thought like, oh yeah, maybe in space, but also, there's a lot more genres out there than fantasy and space. And like different genres, but then like totally different play styles, different ways of storytelling, different mechanics, different lengths, like, finding a game that didn't have to be like this massive 300-page book. I was like, whoa, that's like, because it was something I hadn't seen before, everything new was incredible. And at that point I'd started DMing a short campaign, a campaign that went for 3 years for some old high school friends. And that really that felt like a good in-between step from playing to designing, was like running, to get a sense of, because you're kind of you're trying to put yourselves in the designer's shoes as a GM and be like, okay, how am I using this tool that someone else has created?
To make a cool story. Absolutely.
Yeah,
the
so and I
geometry
really
design
enjoyed
of
that.
Heartline is a real thing to be considered.
Yeah, because I feel like it's a good like empowering
Yeah.
step, like because it's a different sort of role. It's a more I want to say like more it's not necessarily more active. It's just kind of different to
Yeah.
the purely player role. But it gives you that sense of creating something from nothing or building on what's already there in the case of modules. And so, gosh, what I think the first game. Then I learned about. That's right. I joined some discords and I learned about game
Yes,
jams,
game jams. Yep.
which was also super empowering for me. Of like you said, creating a game from scratch, from totally blank, is for me it can be like overwhelming. Like, how do I at that stage? I was like, where do I even begin? I don't even know. My only touch point really was Dungeons and Dragons. So, and at that point, I'd bought a couple games off Itch, and had seen that there was a lot more possibilities out there, but was still very, very new to the whole design space. And so there was a game jam called the Redeemed Villain Game Jam, I think.
Okay.
So I whipped up a little, like a 10 to 20 page game that used cards for that, about villains having to work with heroes and trying to seek redemption.
Oh, that's cool.
So, and my first game, it was okay. Like, looking on it now, it's like a strictly arcade game. It does what it was meant to do at the time, and and I'm happy with that as a milestone. And then it just sort of spiraled from there, like connecting with a lot more people on Twitter, learning a lot more about what's possible, reading a lot more, playing a lot more, and slowly, I did have a D&D heartbreaker. Like, I tried to make a game that did everything and had the 6 stats and had the gym and the fantasy and the fighting, and which is sort of indefinitely shelved now, and that's also okay. There's some tech that I might pull from it. But it was good to kind of go through that, like, this is D&D, so all games must have these pieces, and then be like, actually, no, it can be as small and specific and totally different as I want it to be. So over the last, I feel like, year or two, specifically, I've found more what my niche is, or the design that I want to do. So that's been really great.
What an incredible segue to a question I ask all of my designers when they show up on Designer Spotlight, when you bring up finding your own niche within the Ttrpg like game design that you participate in. What do you think is a Logan core game then? What is your niche?
A Logan core game. My niche, I mean, the tagline that's up on my itch page is games of connection and self-reflection. But I feel like that needs a little tweaking now. A lot of my games are quite intimate. Like a Logan core game is quite intimate, and that might be intimate with a play partner, or it might be quite intimate with yourself. And I guess 2 key examples of that is like my autobiographical game is quite intimate, in that it's like about my life and asks you to be intimate with my life, but also intimate with your own. And then like My Lover's Body is a Temple is another that asks you to be quite intimate with a partner. Like on an emotional level, not necessarily a physical level when I'm saying the word intimate at all. So yeah, I think a Logan core game is quite soft and intimate.
I love that so much. I love hearing everyone's answers when I ask them what they think is core to their games. And after taking a look over at your portfolio and looking at all of the games that you've made, I definitely was just like, I saw My Lover's Body was a temple, and because of I am a T-boy and therefore have T-boy feelings when I see games like that, or any pieces of media that talk specifically about like trans intimacy or queer intimacy, I'm immediately like I have feelings. And it's just nice and affirming to kind of like look at other like trans and queer folks in the space or in any other type of like media production where they're able to kind of like bring those elements in, and I can go, what another shared experience that we all have, and feel like even though myself or the designers are not like talking every day or are like or know each other like intimately, there's a level of like intimacy that happens at that level of engaging with one another's artwork. That's very, very fun and interesting to get into. So as you were exploring kind of like your game design journey, um, what would you say was like the most daunting for you when it comes to like game design and your entrance into it? Because it seems like when you begun your journey, it was, oh, all of these incredible community events were there to kind of like inspire and provide like much needed structure and things like that. But I'm very curious about what you found most challenging during that time.
I think what was most challenging was kind of shedding expectations or assumptions about what a game had to be or had to have
Yes.
In order to be a game. And I think a lot of that was unconscious or subconscious. Like I wasn't aware that I had these biases until hindsight 2020, like looking back and being like, oh, I did that because I thought I had to. And just really separating like things that I choose to do because it's going to support the game or support the story, and things that I think I have to do because I think that that's how stories or mechanics have to be. And in the early day, like those two things felt quite entwined, and like separating that felt like a challenge. Yeah, but now I feel like the challenge, I guess my biggest challenge now is like finding, now that I have a lot more wealth of knowledge and experience, now I have a lot more possibilities to pull from. And it's like, okay, which of these is actually going to work? Like choosing something, choosing a mechanic or a story arc or, story beats. That can be a challenge, but that's a challenge that I kind of enjoy. It feels like a puzzle. But yeah, in an enjoyable way.
Oh, I love that. I love that so much. And being able to be open to the creative process. I definitely, as someone who's making his first ever TTRPG, I've kind of been, because I've been surrounded by so many incredible game designers who have been so generous in their advice and their experience and sharing their experiences with me. I've kind of like sped run a lot of maybe the realizations that they've had that might have taken them a while to piece together, with just my first game of like, oh, I don't have to D&Dify this. I can make this super specific. I make a game does not have to be 400 pages long and have like war game mechanics and like incredibly descriptive equipment tables and all of that. It has been like really wonderful, and also like speedrunning all of the advice about what makes a game and having fun with it has been very, very nice. I love hearing about this. I love hearing about all the different games that exist. And speaking of all the different games that exist, I think now is a great time for us to talk about what we're all here to know about, and that is T-Boy Tummy Thursday, a game about T-Boys, tummies, and it's on a Thursday. I gotta ask you, what inspired T-Boy Tummy Thursday? What inspired this incredibly specific game?
I think it was a combination of two things. The first one being, I think it was maybe T-Boy Tummy Tuesday, actually. It was like a Twitter hashtag, I think, started by, there's this model, like a plus size model on Twitter, his handle is Tranye West, like trans Kanye West. Because he looks like a trans Kanye West, but Tranye West, who's very proudly like fat trans model, and I think he started the hashtag. Okay, yeah, probably. Like,
I was like, wait,
there's overlap.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep. Yes, I am familiar. Yep. As you were saying.
Yeah. So I think he started the hashtag. Oh, good. Yeah, I think he started this hashtag, and so that was really cool to see. Like, especially because a lot of when I was figuring myself out and learning that I was trans, a lot of the people on YouTube that I was seeing were mostly skinny, muscly white folks.
Yeah.
And so seeing other bodies, other ways of being trans is always really exciting to me. And so that was kind of living in my brain. And then I think it was something in the there's a Discord I'm in, Reliquary Street Station, which is an all trans creatives Discord. Very big, very active. I think somehow, T-Boy Tummy Thursday came up. Someone said that phrase. I was like, hang on, I'm going to make a game about that. And so, I went away and did that.
Amazing.
And I wanted it to be like light and chill. Like, I wanted it to be a little fun thing. So I just kind of pulled on other existing one-page games and just stuff I like, and there we went.
That's amazing, and really resonating with the idea of like the trans experience that is extremely visible, especially in online spaces, of like who often gets visibility in spaces in general. And as you've already mentioned, it's a lot of like muscly, skinny, trans masks who have had gender affirming surgeries and look a very, very specific way. I remember before I got like top surgery and things like that, and like seeing all of that was both like, oh, it's so cool to see so many like trans guys like getting visibility, but it's also kind of like, wow, when I would love to see more like folks of color as well as T-boys with tummies. We don't all go to the gym regularly. Some of us just like to chill on the couch and enjoy our tummies and be chill on a Thursday.
Exactly.
And like Kanye West especially is one of the models that when I found him, I was like, oh, thank God you exist. Fantastic. It's so wonderful to see more like folks of color in that space. And it's really cool that you made a game about tummies, because that like holds a lot of love and care for a body type that doesn't necessarily see that sort of affirmation. And I noticed that in a lot of the work that you do is that, again, the Logan core aspect of like intimacy, but I think there's a lot of kind of like, I'm trying to find a way of like phrasing this, but the idea of like, oh, this is the uplifting, I suppose is the word that I'm looking for, is the uplifting of aspects that don't usually see that sort of uplifting, whether that's trans bodies and romantic / physical intimacy, or with a partner, or whether that is T-boys and their tummies. I'm noticing that from you, and I'm like, I see you, and I love it. Amazing.
Thanks.
Amazing. So that's what inspired TY Tummy Thursday. And as you said, this game is a one-page RPG. There was plenty of like game structures that existed out there. Why the one-page RPG format for this game?
I wanted it to be one page because like the whole like vibe, I guess, of T-Boy Tummy Thursday was meant to be very like light and chill, and like approachable, relaxed, and so it felt like a one page has that, for me, has that vibe as well. Like, okay, it's one page. I don't have to do a lot of pre-reading before I rock up to game night.
Yeah.
Like, I could just have this one thing in front of me. I don't have to remember anything because it's all written down. And so it felt like it supported that like chill vibe. And there is a lot that you can do with one page. And it's also an exercise in creative constraints. Like, you have to be, because you're so constrained, you have to get creative with how you use the paper and imagery and space to convey what you're hoping to convey. And I also wanted to like just smash something out real quick.
Oh my goodness.
All of those reasons.
All of those reasons. And it's really effective. When I look at this, when I first opened the page, I was like, oh wow, this is easy for me to get into. I could rock this up to a Thursday night with the T-Boy lads and have a great time. I don't know if this was intentional on you, but I do love the way that it's structured, the way that the game works and functions as well, feels also like a chill time. So it's like a meta within a meta, almost, of like, if you gather a bunch of T-boys and you play this game, you are also doing the chill thing you're supposed to be doing. But for the audience at home, the way this game functions is that you first choose your type of T-boy, your style of T-boy, and this is very important information, Logan. Which style of T-boy are you? Are you a dog boy, words boy, dirt boy, robot boy, girl boy, or strong boy?
I think I've fluctuated. I feel like I'm Dirt Boy.
You're a dirt boy?
Yeah, I'm Dirt Boy. How about you? What boy are you?
Listen, I'm nothing if not consistent. I'm probably dog boy.
Nice.
I'm
Yeah.
I am probably dog boy, proudly so. I just love being excited and hanging out with my pals. That is like the joy, the true
Perfect.
joy. And as you go through the game, you do so you ask one to the left and one to the right for each of the friends that you're playing with, which is one of my favorite mechanics in a game. It helps like establish a lot of like narrative space almost immediately. And I do want to say this is all very trans specific. The the line, "You handed down a bunch of old clothes to me. What item do I wear most?" was it. I was just like, ooh, this is so incredibly trans.
So real.
Like, I remember for my birthday, when I was in college, one of my old friends at the time, they rocked on up and they were like, "Hey, here's my birthday present to you." And it is like all of their binders, because I just gotten into binding at that time. And as soon as you wrote that down, I was like, yeah, that's very trans. I've given away my binders as well, and like old clothing being passed out between trans folks. And I wanted to tie that in to that aspect of your game design for this particular game, of making a very specific experience. Uh, and other designers I've talked about, when they talk about making a specific experience, they want it. Usually, it's about telling a specific story, or maybe reflecting on a specific experience that they've had. What was that for you with T-Boy Tummy Thursday?
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of the questions there are specific to things that have happened to me. Like, I've also had friends pass on clothing, and for like a long time, for years, even still today, I still have a lot of that clothing. For a long time, like a lot of my clothes were things that trans men had passed on to me, which is really lovely. And I think specifically here, like I have a handful of trans mask friends that I hang out with in person. I used to do more. There's like a trans mask support group here in Melbourne, which does regular events, which is super cool. And so wanting to evoke a bit of that, of like hanging out with people who have similar experiences, who you don't have to explain yourself to, who like you can bond over a shared experience, but you're also like quite different from each other in other aspects. So there's a lot to sort of learn about each other, and you can just hang out and like talk and talk and talk. And I remember one of the earliest events I went to with the support was a camp. They do, I think, like 2 camps a year.
Oh, that's so cool.
And so it's like, yeah, like for a couple of days over a long weekend or something. And at that time, I think I just started T. I hadn't had top surgery yet. I was very sort of bright-eyed and been like seeing all of these adult trans men that that could be me in the future. And yeah, clicked with a couple folks immediately, and we stood around the campfire talking, late into the night. Just about like stuff that we like we're just nerding out. Like we weren't even talking about trans things. Like of course I asked all the questions about top surgery, and but then it was just like we're regular people just talking about stuff that we love. So wanting to evoke a bit of that, and just like, and while those conversations weren't necessarily explicitly about being trans, like we were explicitly trans. Like you don't have to hide one in favor of the other, or only talk about one and not about your regular interests. You can only talk about being trans. Like these things can coexist, and they do coexist.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't have to be a big deal. Like,
No, I love that, because that's often the conversation that like trans folks get roped into, is that like in our daily lives, our transness is the centering point of like our existence and conversations surrounding who we are as people. It's almost like that is the thick thick wall and veil that people have to like deconstruct over God knows how long until they're like, oh, this person's a person who is like a nerd
Yeah.
or really enjoys baking or cooking or any other type of project. Because I do not know a single trans person who isn't into a project or something or another. I don't know
Yeah.
why we're all like that. So it's really
Still
cool.
have interest.
We still have interests, and that super resonates with me as well, because we had a in college like trans groups as well, and that whole idea of like, yeah, because we don't have that big veil that has to be deconstructed before getting to know one another, we can actually get into just making friends and getting to know one another, which is probably why like T4T friendships and relationships are hit different. And crafting a specific game is awesome. So for the audience at home, the goal of the game is that you want to chill with your buddies. You get to choose what kind of chill thing you're doing. And you also have to choose a thing that might interrupt you. This concept of interruption to the chill time. Uh, what specific you made a face which made me go, okay, I'm gonna ask a little bit more about the interruption. What inspired this aspect of like the interruption to the chill time? I mean, other than there has to be tension to be built in a game, what inspired it?
Yeah, there was like, some need for tension, but I wanted it to be something relatively minor that could be overcome or or added to the story in some way. So, if we've decided our chill time is going to the museum, but we might be interrupted by a power outage, like, okay, so now the power's out at the museum, now we're having like an eerie museum experience, and it's still fun. Like,
Yeah.
it's something that can create tension, something that's sort of looming to create that sense of something happening, or like a plot twist.
Okay.
That can advance the story or shift the story, but it's not like the worst one is getting called into work, I reckon.
Oh my god,
I mean, there's minor
that.
injuries there too, but like, it can be pretty minor. It can be like, you get a cut, and now your Tboys have to kiss your hand to make it better. Like, oh no, what a tragedy! Like,
Oh no, what a tragedy.
like, it's nothing major.
you're having a pizza party together, and you accidentally like cut a finger or something. And you're like, oh no, if only there were a couple of T-boys to kiss my finger. Oh no.
Exactly, like that's like, and you're like laughing, and that's great because like it's still kind of chill anyway.
Yeah, no, I love that.
So yeah, that was the kind of the hope that it could be like tension, but like kind of fun anyway.
I saw the get called into work when I was reading this, and I was like, yeah, that's the worst one. I don't want that to happen during my chill time. I would actively avoid that call if that happened to me IRL. I hate that. I also love a ghost. There's
who knows?
Who knows?
It's possible.
It's a ghost. I love that so much. Amazing. And in this game, folks, we have 3 stats. There's T-Boy, it's Tubby, and it's Thursday. I love this. T-Boy is about being extremely, really, really trans and playing into your style. Tummy is using your body, especially your tummy. And Thursday is about gotta be logical about it, and you get to assign stats to those specific different like characteristics that you have in this game. This is very sort of like inspiring to me. Once I publish The Beast Within, I will take time to myself to just make tiny little games, and you've definitely inspired me by making a game called T-Boy Tummy Thursday, and then subsequently making those the stats of the game, and just keeping things nice and simple. And I wanted to like pick your brain on that in terms of like advising newer designers about like keeping things so like kind of like letting go of those constraints that we've talked about before. What work have you done, or what kind of reflection did you do, and what helped you kind of like let go of a lot of the expectations and constraints about like how complicated a game needs to be, what a game should look like, things like that. How did you get through that journey?
Yeah, totally. I think one of the things I thought, or an assumption I had for a long time, is that a game had to try and do everything possible.
Yeah.
Like it had to account for every single possible thing that the players might think of doing. And that's quite a like design sort of top down way of thinking of design, of like I have to pre preconceive, I have to, foretell everything that the players are going to do. And there has to be a specific rule about what they want to, how they want to do that. And there has to interact with mechanics in a specific way. And it's very like, it's very intense. Like that's a lot of work to make me as a designer do. And it's very, it's also a bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Foolhardy, or like assuming that I can predict everything that the players might want to do.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I have my own biases, and specifically as a designer, I know what actions I want players to take, and so I can, granulate all of those specific actions. But I don't know what any other person is going to bring, what assumptions they'll bring to the genre or play style. So it felt like, on further reflection, it felt like a pointless exercise, really, to try and predict everything that players are going to do, because you just can't.
Yes.
Really, it's impossible. And so that sort of helps me move away from trying to be super specific and cater for everything. And I've taken on this sort of mantra, I guess, of a game that tries to do everything does nothing. A game that tries to be every experience does no experience well. It's just so, in order to touch on everything, you have to be very vague about everything.
That's
and touch very lightly on anything, which means you're going deep on nothing. And I mean, if you go deep on everything, you've written an entire library, and it's like no one's going to play that game. Well, okay, someone might play that game.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's someone who play that game, but like most people won't. That's just not very accessible to have such a massive tome of information. So then I really allowed myself to be like, okay, what's the one specific journey? What's the one specific story that I want to be able to tell with this game? And then to get really specific with it, like, with using Tboy Tummy Thursday as a example, there's no fighting stat, there's no like looking around perception, there's no perception check, there's like and the stats are quite open to interpretation. So like Tboy being really trans, what does that even mean? Well, it's up to the player. Like, what does being trans mean to you? And so it's more of a, it's not quite like a bottom-up way of designing, of like really leaving it in the player's hands, of like, here's some categories, you can interpret them however you want to suit the story that you're telling. They give you vibes or themes that are important, that are key to this kind of story. And because they're, their vibes or themes, they're broad enough that you can read sorts of different actions into them. And so it's a lot more about, rather than me as a designer trying to give every single possible size of screwdriver to fit every kind of thing that you might want to ever do, it's just giving you a screwdriver and with removable heads, and you bring your own heads. And I don't know where I've moved into a tool metaphor here, but basically trying to
works effectively, and also very trans. Okay.
Yeah, but so I'm just wanting to be, I've moved into more specifically with stats, like just a handful, like three is often a good number for me. 3 stats that are like theme based and somewhat vague, and allow players to really build on them, rather than trying to be really specific and have every kind of check that they might ever want to do.
Yeah. No, I love that a lot. I mean, even the pointing out the Tboy stat in particular, of being really trans and playing into your style, even in the beginning when you list the different styles of Tboys that you could play. There's no like text. It's just a table. It says all the labels that we've announced earlier, and it's open to interpretation of how the person who's reading it would describe their Tboy style. I mean, what a dirt boy might mean to you might mean dirt boy in a different flavor or experience to someone else. Same thing with like dog boy and dog boy or robot boy, right? Which is so neat and so cool. Yeah, and
And
also
players get to choose that for themselves at the start as
yeah.
well. So they get to, in that way, they're influencing their Tboy stat. And so it's kind of open, and people can always go back and change their boy type if they want to.
Yes, yes. Experience all the genders. That's how it works. That's how it works, right? Amazing. Yeah. So that's how the stats work. And in terms of the game, as we've already said, you're just trying to have a chill time, and then challenges happen. You roll your d6s, and you see how it happens. What kind of progresses or kind of like keeps pace the storytelling in this particular game is your clocks mechanic, which is something I'm seeing a lot more. I don't know what happens usually. Every time I do a designer spotlight, I would have just been reading a mechanic that I do see reflected, and I'm like, oh wow, I'm seeing this very often recently. I just not watch. I played Monster Care Squad, and there is a clock sort of like element in there, and I wanted to like pick your brain on this, on like the usage of the clocks. Like, yes, it makes sense because you're both trying to have like everyone in this T-boy hangout is trying to have as much fun with the time they're allotted. But what inspired the clock mechanic in particular for this game? Why did you choose it?
I really love clocks as a way, like you said, of building the narrative and keeping the pacing. And clocks are like open information. Everyone can see the clocks and knows how close they are to being ticked or ticked full, which again gives that sense of tension, like, oh, something's about to happen. And it can, without like it all being on the GM to be like, oh, something's about to happen because, and then they have to narratively, describe something, and they have to keep coming up with new narrative ways that something is almost happening. It's like more closer, but not exactly.
Yeah.
And it removes that kind of narrative burden,
Yeah.
which, can be a burden for some, can be awesome for others. But it's a way of like saying this is getting closer and closer without having to, without having to be super specific about it. Leaving it up to the players to decide, is there a narrative? Is it shown narratively, or is this just time passing, and this is just sort of a meta thing that we're aware of? And it builds that that tension, knowing that something might be about to happen, or you might be about to achieve your goal, or something might be about to interrupt you. And it also gives a clean ending. So when the chill clock is full, you do your chill thing. You have a bit of chill time, you say how it goes, how it ends, and then that's the end of the game. And it makes a really clear way to know when to end. And satisfying endings is also something that I'm quite keen on to games, because like the fizzle out is like the worst way to end a game.
No, I as a GM 100% agree. I always try to keep the energy up of like the ending. This is a slight segue away from T-Boy Tummy Thursday, but I have you here and I would love to hear your opinion. But it is related to what you just said of like having open information for players to divulge in, right? In that shared experience. There are certain groups that might consider that sort of like meta gaming or like meta storytelling, right? And I'm very, very curious to hear your idea about like this idea of like meta narrative and like this open information experiences. Where do you personally like sit on that like line of experience that you enjoy playing into or even creating for, really?
Yeah, so my understanding of the spectrum in the extremes is like, all information should be open. We shouldn't be like hiding things from each other. And the other end is like, we have to hide information from players because then there won't be surprises or plot twists, or they might use information to beat the GM.
Yes.
And I feel like on that end, a lot of it can feel from what I've read and what I understand, a lot of it can feel quite antagonistic, and this idea of an antagonistic GM, which is useful in some games and necessary for particular stories. And it's not the kind of game that I design for. I often design GM-less. So that idea of someone of the GM having information to pass out to players doesn't really exist when I design. And I can understand from a point of view, there are players like if I'm playing a game or with people and there might be meta information, I often ask, like, because there are some players who are like, oh, if I, a player, know this information, I cannot prevent my character from knowing that. Like, I just can't do that separation. It's too tricky for my brain to handle. I'm like, okay, cool, that's fine. And, you know, we make an agreement that I'm going to keep information from you, and, you know, my character has secrets and I won't let you know. And other times it's really good for players to know information that their characters don't. So then, as a player, I can choose to do a big reveal or ask you a pointed question. Like, so if Logan knows that Val, no, sorry, I'll do it reverse. So if Val, you know that my character has secretly turns into a wolf at night, right? But your character doesn't. Then we can set up together a really juicy moment where your character decides to go for a walk at night and finds a wolf. And we can play into that, and the two of us, and I can still play my character as a wolf, and the GM doesn't have to pretend to be me and be looking at me to be like, is this what your character would do as a wolf? And I have to do this whole three-way thing. Like, we can still have that interaction authentically as each other, and then, you know, we can decide, okay, at a player level, does your character realize that I'm the wolf, or do they not? And like, we can discuss what we think would be most juicy, because like when I play, I want to have a juicy story time with lots of drama. So I think having more information open can allow players to create that drama better together. And so I think, really, to answer the question at the end of the day, is depends on player style. Like, there are some players, I can't remember who it was, someone was telling me there are some players who are really used to that antagonistic GM style and can't really fathom it being otherwise. And that's fine. There are games that will support that. At the end of the day, it comes down to player style. I personally, the style that I like is I like hearing all the juicy backstory bits and being like, okay, does Logan know that, or does my character know that? And I'll make that separation. And so that's where I like to sit, because it can create more juicy character moments.
I love that. I have very, very similar opinions to you. As a GM, I also do not play into a lot of the antagonistic. I want y'all to be involved typically. But I do agree that like there are certain types of games that facilitate that specific style, and folks can enjoy that. It is a tool. It is a style and a manner of playing that folks can really get into and enjoy. I personally do like some element of open information, open storytelling, because the juicy moments happen. Truly, nothing is, in my experience, nothing is more rewarding than talking with your fellow player about the specific knives that you're bringing at each other in an upcoming session. And they're like, oh, this is gonna be so good. I'm gonna do this. Heads up, I'm gonna like tap into this, or like both of you get to like co-sign each other's doom in a certain way. And then this next session you show up and you're like, all right, I'm ready to fight. And that's literally what happened with like Sam and I in an episode of Transplanar RPG and Chaos Protocol, where our characters do have an argument. And we were like, we did talk about it ahead of time because safety and things like that, knowing what the parameters were. But it was very much like, okay, Sam, which of these knives do you want? Because all of these are relevant to the particular scenario, but I want you to tell me which ones you want to be hurt with in this moment. And Sam was like, oh, this and this and this. And Val, what do you want me to do? And I'm like, oh, this will hurt really bad. Do this. And it's so fun.
Exactly. And it's still like, it doesn't ruin the surprise or anything, because like the exact way that knife is delivered will be different, and like where in the conversation it happens, and the context that it happens, like are the characters around, like what has just been said before or after, like it's still, you can like name exactly what knives you want to throw and it will still be not what you expected to happen, or not exactly what you expected.
Exactly. And also the number of times where I like go into a thing thinking like, I know what happens because we were told, right, that this is going to happen for safety, and we prepared for it. And still in the moment, it takes the wind out of me still. Like, I think folks do underestimate that element of like, just because you know something and think you're prepared for it doesn't necessarily mean that like it won't have the impact. It still will. Like, you can watch you can watch movies, right, and know where the storyline is going, especially if
Yeah.
like a character its death has been foreshadowed, or oh, based on this piece of information I learned from the beginning, clearly this character is going to have a very, very tragic end. You can still, by that time that plot point reveals itself, feel that, oh, this actually sucks. I'm getting my husband into a Chinese drama called The Untamed. And in the beginning, they tell you the whole history of the main character, including the death of one of his like siblings. And we meet her and we see like all the flashbacks. And I'm like, oh my god, I love her. And then we're like, oh wait, oh wait, oh no, oh no.
Oh no.
We know she's not there in the future though. So we're gonna find out why. And so yeah, I 100% agree. I just felt like the amazing opportunity to ask you that, because it's a juicy question.
For sure. And like, if people have secrets and they're holding onto them and no one else knows about them, like, potential for them to never come out. If going back to the wolf example, if I'm turning into a wolf at night and you just like, oh no, I'm just getting a good night's sleep because I need my long rest, blah blah blah. There's a possibility that no one will ever know if if there is no meta conversation. So it's like lots of opportunities can be missed.
Yeah, I'm like, secrets, like, part of the joy of having secrets in TTRPGs is for the reveal, right? It is for like, part of the reason why we have the backstory is because again, some players might be just happy to have a backstory just flavor trajectory, but oftentimes in my experience, folks have backstories because they do want in some way aspects of it to be revealed or reflected upon. There's a level of like engagement that folks want to happen there. So nothing wrong with having a chat about it, if not for the co-signing each other's doom and the juiciness that brings in case of surprises, at the very least for safety reasons, just so that folks don't get like caught off guard with information that might come out and go, oh yikes, didn't know we were gonna get it in this deep this fine Thursday afternoon, but here we are. Right? But yeah, I love that. I also wanted to pick on another thing you mentioned before we got into the meta narrative bit about making satisfying endings in your game design. You said that that's something you always aim to do. Why and how come? Why is that the experience that you love to craft in your games?
Yeah, I think it probably dates back to I had a really great this 4.5 year D&D campaign that I was in. Had a really great ending.
Still
like
incredible.
We got to level 20.
Time. I'm like,
so lucky. Yeah, I have a tattoo. I met my partner through that game as well, so it's has a pretty staying impact in my personal life, but also in my design life. We had like classic big end fight, and then we had a couple of epilogue episodes as well, where we got to talk about after retirement and on and on and on into the a lot of the characters were like elves or half elves, so they're quite long lived, and talking about, okay, what does that look like over the next 100 years or what have you.
Yeah.
Which was also really lovely. And so that felt like I was able to leave that game and that character like really, it's really satisfying. Like yes, I told this great story. This character's gone on a lot of growth. I had also, as a human, gone on a lot of growth during that time.
Yeah.
And felt like, we did it. We like told this epic, like this is like 6 movies, and there's like if this was in an alternate universe, this is a 6-movie deal. There's fan fiction coming left, right, and center. There's there's people dressing up as them. It's got like we'd done a real big thing. And then other times, I tried joining other campaigns that would, for various reasons, fizzle, or I wouldn't get along with the players, and like that stark contrast is like, okay, that's just really unsatisfying. And then like those stories kind of fade from memory.
Yeah.
So in order for things to be, I guess, for me to really land and be memorable and feel rewarding, having a strong ending is important. Because all things end. It's a natural life cycle, and so doing that well feels like 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 the right way to go. It's like almost like respectful, it's complete, it's natural. And I a lot of the games that I was reading at the time, like Dungeons and Dragons, level 20 is like the ostensible end, but it doesn't tell you like this is how you wrap up your character, this is how you do an epilogue, this is what retirement might look like for your characters. Hot tip: Stewpot by Takuma Okada, NoRoadHome.itch.io is like a basically here's a game to play to help your characters from D&D retire, or any of your fantasy characters. So check that out. I'll throw you a link.
Yes, please.
At some point. But yeah, Stewpot. There are other games that exist to like do these endings, and there's a lot more games now from various folks specifically about endings. But I felt like when I was first coming into the scene, I didn't see a lot of games that were like, this is how you end the thing. And there was that almost sort of built an expectation, like you just have to keep going and going and going on forever and ever and ever, which of course can't happen. Which means if it doesn't go on forever and it doesn't end, then it fizzles, and that to me always felt like really unsatisfying. So that's why I wanted to have clear endings in my games from a satisfaction point, but also like setting expectations. Like, how long am I committing to playing this thing?
Yeah.
Like when I started Dungeons and Dragons, it was like, we just keep going until we're done, I guess.
4.5 years
and
later,
at that point, that was exactly. At that point, that was fine for me. Yeah, at that point, I didn't have I wasn't super busy or anything, so going and playing this game regularly was very doable for me. And yeah, it lasted 4.5 years, and that was amazing. And now my life has shifted. I have different things in my life, and so knowing ahead of time, okay, how much time am I committing to this, is really useful for me. Like, is this a 4-game campaign and then we reassess, or is this a one-shot thing, or is this the next year of my life? So setting a bit of expectations, I feel like is also part of it.
I love that, and I see you kind of like crafting that in Tboy Tommy Thursday specifically as well, with the clocks and keeping that like chill, happy ending still kind of relevant to the storyline, even if the interrupt clock fills and the interruption arrives. You write here that it can be woven into the story and keep reaching for your chill. And as when you overcome the interruptions, you can still take a segment on the chill clock. So like chill can still be achieved, and a happy ending can still be brought to fruition. Do you have like specific advice or like tips and tricks for keeping in mind clear endings in game design, and being able to craft that experience from a game design perspective?
Yeah, totally. I think for me, what I like to do often is ask questions. I'm a big fan of questions as mechanics.
Yes.
Like you said earlier, with the ask one to the left and one to the right to build character relationships. But questions are just so good. And a well-crafted question can do a lot. It can give information and provide space. It can give lore. Like it can do a lot. It can imply a lot. As well as then invite the player to create more.
Yes.
So I guess advice for thinking about the ending of a game, I mean, you can ask questions of yourself of like, how do you know when story is done? How do you know when it's reached completion? How do you know when it feels satisfied? And that can be like coming back to like, what do the characters want? If in character creation, the characters that you've sort of helped the players craft, they often have some sort of desire or something, maybe they have a secret they want to reveal, a goal they want to achieve. What does it look like? What does it mean for them to achieve that? How long might that take? But yeah, like when you've reached the end of the story, like how will you know? Like if this was a book and you closed the last page, like what would that need to do and be for people to be like, okay, I have no more questions, or I don't have any, like, I might have small questions, but I don't have any pressing, like, key questions of like that need to be answered. And that could look totally different for lots of different games. So like for Tboy Tummy Thursday, the aim of the game is to have a chill time. So when the chill time has been had, that's the end. Okay, great. That's really simple. Yeah. But like bigger games like Dungeons and Dragons, I mean, the characters don't necessarily start with a question, and like kind of the drive of D&D is just get more and more powerful.
Yes.
So I guess for us, the question was like, okay, we've reached level 20, we've become as powerful as and mechanically as we possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean for our characters? What do now that we're a party of 5, like level 20, ridiculously powerful people?
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean for us in the world now that we can do practically anything? What do you choose to do?
Yeah.
Like, you can't get any more powerful than this. You've achieved like ultimate power.
Yeah.
Basically.
Basically a
Now what?
demigod. Like,
Yeah. So what do you choose to do with that? Like,
yeah.
So it can be like, it can be achieving the goal, or like after you've achieved the goal, now what? Like, that can be a satisfying question. So, yeah, I guess, I don't know. Do one more other example. What's a game that lots of people know? Well, what's you said Monster Care Squad.
Yeah.
Like, the aim of each adventure is to find the source of the false gold.
Fool's gold. Yeah,
false gold.
Yep.
Which is infecting a creature, and to cure that creature.
Yeah.
Right. So once you do that, okay, you've done, and that's the goal of the adventure, and maybe the characters have more that might prompt you to go on another adventure and do some more character growth there. But ostensibly, once you've cured the creature, that's end of book 1. So that's really clear. So having a really clear goal, which can be, depending on the game, that can be sort of the thing that the adventures often provide. They provide that question that you're trying to answer. Character backstories also provide some sort of questions, not always, but often. And then sometimes there are other games like Tboys Thursday where the question's really clear in the game itself. So having a question, I feel like that's the questions as a designer, and then also you can use questions for players to answer. Like I was saying with D&D, like you become ultimate power. What do you choose to do with that? Or you've cured this monster, you've overcome this, you've got revenge, or you've overcome this obstacle that you've been striving for your whole life. Now what? And that question, and just letting people like not even role play that out, just but kind of like talk it out, have a little epilogue, monologue, and that can be a really satisfying ending too.
I love that, and thank you, Logan, for single-handedly inspiring me to ensure to write a little, however long it is, just like a little thing, maybe a little reflection point in The Beast Within about endings and how to conclude your game. Because, like, yeah, I've been so focused on creating like an open experience. I was like, oh yeah, maybe having a little thing. It doesn't have to be super long, but like a little thing towards the end of the book, just to like help folks think about like endings and setting expectations for their campaigns. That's very neat and cool. So thank you so much. And that that's one of the main things. Those are the main things I wanted to talk about with Tboy Tummy Thursday. And we're about an hour and 8 minutes in. I would love to open the floor for Q&A. For folks to ask questions of Logan and about game design, about Tboy Tummy Thursday, or any of their other games. I want to ask you. I wanted to ask you while we're waiting for folks to drop their questions in the chat. Feel free to drop it in, folks, and I will pull onto them. I want to ask you, what are new and cool things that you've got coming up that you want folks to know about?
Right. Yeah, I've got a couple. So I do have, as you mentioned right at the start, I'm going to become a podcaster. Yes. Like every person and their dog. I am. I'll be starting recording next year and hopefully releasing from March 2024. Possibly earlier if I get super enthused. But March is my my soft official release schedule. And the podcast is called Lyrical Ludology, which ludology being the study of games, and lyrical because it's a podcast focused around lyric games. And you feel like, what are lyric games? That is a great question. That will be the focus of season 1 of the podcast. So, I mean, lyric games are a niche within the indie scene that are, like, in a word, weird. Like they're the weird Barbie in Barbie Land, right?
Weird Barbie in Barbie Land.
but they're also like super cool. They do different things, and they mean lots of different things to different people.
Yeah.
And there is no one, like the scene has not agreed upon one definition.
Yeah.
And that's part of what's interesting to me about lyric games, is that they are a lot of things to different people. I have my own definition, and each of the people that I'm going to have on an amazing guest list that I've been very fortunate to be able to get. I'm sure they will all have their own definitions and perspectives. So we're going to chat about that. So I'm really excited about that. So yeah, March 2024 onwards. We have a YouTube, which is Lyrical Ludology, but the best place to find any sort of links is on my card, logantimmons.card.co. So that's my sort of major project that will be happening next year. I'm also working away at a short Knights-based tabletop game, thinking of Knights as a cohort of people who, in this game, they're under an authoritarian monarchy. I mean, monarchy, authoritarianism often go hand in hand. But the Knights as a group of people who are kind of like, they're very strict, oath. They have very strict orders to serve. They have a very rigid sort of lifestyle, very rigid ways of being told to do things. And then they go out on adventures. They go into the real world and find out that it's not everything. It's not as rigid as they've been told. And they often undergo some deep personal change, and they come back from these adventures quite different and reassess what knighthood means to them.
I am barking and I'm rattling the cage of my enclosure. You have made a Val core game of I'm a paladin main. This is for everyone who does not know me. I'm a paladin main. I'm a little obsessed with paladins. So that whole game premise, I'm like, yes. Tasty.
Yeah,
love that. My first D&D character was a paladin, and he had to reassess his oath. It was great. I loved that so much.
Delicious. Love it. Yeah, and it's very much a allegory, and like my games being intimate. This is a intimate allegory of me growing up in a sort of fairly conservative Christian household, and being told a lot of things of what was real and not real, and what was right and wrong, and going out into the world and learning very different to what I'd been told, and reassessing. I'm not Christian now, and reassessing like who I want to be and how I want to be in the world. So it's that's where the intimacy comes in there. Yeah.
Big mood as a recovering Catholic. We do have a question in chat.
You get me.
But yeah, I do get you. We do have a question in chat from Wizard's Bread Book. Their question is, could you tell the story of what got you into game dev?
Sure. I think story of what got me into game dev, traces back to the explosion of indie games after Sad Mech Jam. And there was one particular game, I think it was for that jam, by it was either by Caro Assertion or Vidita Valetti. I don't remember who, sorry. The Fire Flickers Between Us. I think that was that game. I think that's Vidita Valetti now that I'm saying it out loud. But basically there's a game where the mechanics was you light a match on fire and you can talk as long as you're holding the match.
Ooh.
So you have to drop it at some point or get burnt, and say as much as you can while you're holding it. And I was like, wow, a lit match can be a mechanic? What?
Yeah.
And it just is like, anything can be game. Everything is game. Or anything can be game. Anything can be playful. And so that really kind of exploded my brain. And of course, I was like, oh yes, I'm going to take this revolutionary idea and make a game that uses cards instead of dice. Whoa. Get ready, everyone. Which, I thought was super cool. And for me, like, that was a big deal at the time.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was a good first step. But like, and now I can't say I haven't used any lit matches as mechanics in my games yet. But there are games of mine that, invite you to talk to a flower or go make friends with a rock. So using like, real life, everyday kind of things as, mechanics in a loose sense.
I love that so much. And I do want to say, like, when you said, but I'm going to make a game, but instead of dice just with cards, but I do want to hype you up a little bit on that and affirm you a little bit on that, because what has kind of like opened my eyes as well is watching how folks, different designers, use cards differently. Though I interviewed just
Mm.
before you, I was interviewing Taylor for her
Mhm.
self-journaling game family album, and I was like, yeah, I really love the way that you use cards and that you separated like the themes of family album, which is a game like reflecting about parenthood specifically, and about the burdens, kind of the burdens of the one who preserves memories, the parent
Mm.
that takes photos, because they're not often not in the photo, right? And it is very very interesting, and I was like, oh, I really love like the different like segments that you've divided the cards by. And then she just goes, yeah, so the clubs are like related to clubs or like extracurricular activities and like hobbies and things like that, and hearts are like, you know, family events, and diamonds are like cultural holidays or any type of like special occasion. And I was like, oh wait, that's very interesting that you've divided it up like that. And in comparison, like Valastari's Starlight, there we go, that's the word. Valastari's Starlight uses the prompts in a very different way, denoting different flavors of drama and dramaturgy that can exist. It's tension between your character and about memories that they are recovering as they go on a journey.
Mm.
Just to affirm you on that, of like, yes, a lot of folks use cards, but it's also like, I love seeing how different game designers look at like playing cards or even tarot cards and go, this is the thing I'm looking at, and I am particularly taking a note on as I'm exploring this. It's very very cool. I
Yeah,
look
cards are like so. Sorry, go ahead.
no, I was like, I'm looking forward to your match game. I'm like, I know you said yet, so now it's like, okay, so it's a matter of time before you make a game with a match in it, right?
Yeah, yeah, I could do it. But yeah, cards are, you're right, they're so versatile.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they can be split into 4 suits, so 14, 13 different like numbers or values.
Mm.
Um, court cards versus non-court card number cards, and
Mm-hmm.
aces as well. And yeah, you can do a lot of things with them. You can like draw
Mm-hmm.
them. You can have a prompt attach them. You can place them in a
Mm-hmm.
tableau. You can move them around. You can flip them over. You can hand them
Yeah.
between players. Like there's so much you can do with cards. And there are some really great. Cat McDonald of Peach Garden Games made
Mm-hmm.
the Carter SRD,
Mm-hmm.
which is using cards like a map. You place cards face down,
Ooh.
and you can offer like the base sort of game is you place a pawn or some sort of marker on a card, and you flip it over, and you kind of move through this terrain and flip over a card and sort of see where you are. Often, trying to find something or not lose resources or gain something.
Mm-hmm.
And that was super cool to me, like using cards in that way. And then another card game that I really like is Stealing the Throne by Nick Bate.
Mm.
Really slick design. That's like one of the slickest card-based games that I've ever had the pleasure of playing many times and hacking. Really great game. And it uses cards basically like as almost like checks to overcome obstacles. But you get to choose like if you succeed or fail, like higher the number the better, and you kind of wagering against an unknown number that will be flipped after you play your card. On what you're how hard are you going to push, or are you going to save that for later when you might need it, or are you going to flunk this one on purpose so that you definitely get away at the end?
Oh, that's so neat.
There's a lot you can do with cards.
Oh, that's really neat. That makes me want to make a I don't know if you've ever played Inscription, but it makes me want to play, like, build a simple game, future Val dreams, but like a really simple game. So Inscription is a roguelike deck builder game. It's a video game. The first section of the game is the part that I find the most interesting, because you go up against this entity who acts almost like a pseudo GM of sorts, and you play like this kind of like battle card game with him, and he sets out like a map that you traverse, and he brings up different characters that you come across and different challenges for you to surpass. and you have to build a good deck so that you can beat him at the end, right? And then go to the next area. It is really cool. The vibes are immaculate. But hearing you like talk about like like almost like choosing when to like succeed or fail, and having this like very interesting dialogue with an other that's there in an almost like betting gambling fashion makes me go, that would be pretty fun for an inscription game. That's something for me to tinker about. That's something for me to tinker with later. I've got another game I need to publish.
Write that down in your ideas. Yeah, put it in the ideas bucket.
Yeah.
And tarot cards too, like you're saying, like they have a lot of meaning in them.
Yes.
Historically, but also the like depending on the deck, the images can be interpreted in so many different ways. So I have a couple of games with tarot cards, where the invitation is just to kind of, often there's a prompt attached to the card, or there's a sort of open question each time you reveal a card to create something based on the imagery of the card. So yeah, cards super versatile. Yeah.
Do you have...
And like a lot of people just have them in their house. Like a deck of playing cards is not that uncommon and not that expensive either if someone really wants to go get one.
It's the same thing with like D6s as well, it being like a really accessible like die, because it's a kind of die that if you have a Monopoly game in your house, you probably have D6s.
You got them.
Yeah, you got them, which is really, really neat and cool to think about, right? You've made tarot card games, so I'm curious, do you have a favorite tarot card?
Oh, I have a favorite tarot card.
This is just for me because I'm a tarot nerd.
Yeah. Yes, I know this about you. I feel like I don't know the tarot well enough to have a favorite card. I'm very new. I have one deck of my own. Cool. It's like a, what is it called again? The Secret Forest Tarot. It's like all fairy themed.
Oh yes.
Quite nice. Yeah, there's a couple of cards in there that I enjoy, but I can only see the images and not their values.
So... Okay. Is there one that comes to mind that you can describe for you? I could maybe name it for you.
There's one where there's it's a wand card. It's red, and there's a fox, and it's sort of looking off into the distance, and there's like stars, and it's got this sort of like hopeful look to it. Fox looking off into the distance.
Yeah, it might be the Star if it's a major arcana. It might be the Star, which is about hope, and it is about like new beginnings and things like that. There are, I believe there are. I'm trying to remember the Rider-Waite has an animal in the Star. I think so. I believe there's an animal in there. Well, I will look at my tarot deck afterwards and ask. We do have another question from Wizard's Bread and Book, which is: are there any TTRPGs that use checkers or chess that you know of?
Oh, not that I've designed, but I know that there are. Who was it? So maybe it was Cesar Capacle. Someone designed fake chess, which is like a fake chess.
That's amazing.
And chess 2 or something. You can search chess in the physical game section of itch.io, and there's like fake chess, and you use chess to like tell story as you are moving pieces around. They exist. Definitely for chess. I don't know about checkers. Definitely for chess. There are chess-based games. And I have thought about it, but again, it's like because there's so many pieces and they move in very specific ways, it feels like there's a lot that can be done with that. Even like, you could remove some pieces or make a smaller board. It feels like it is a rich tool for making some sort of story.
Yes.
And it's interesting because if you use the sort of rules as written of chess and the specific ways that characters move, that's quite rigid, which again is creative constraints. Like would suit a particular kind of story, and I'm not sure what that story is. What story I might write about it. Like it's sort of about it gets sort of themes of exploration. There's also like conquest or fighting. There's sort of journeying and sacrifice involved. But along very sort of rigid rules. So yes, I'm not quite sure what that might look like. Because like I wouldn't play like a T-Boy Tummy Thursday kind of game with chess.
Yeah.
Because it's like, the vibes are very different.
The vibes of that T-Boy Tummy Thursday game is definitely very, very different.
Like, so you wanna match the vibes.
Oh, I love that. Damn, I never thought of that. Like using chess or like checkers or any type of kind of like older like game and repurposing it for in a TTRPG fashion, which is
Yeah. I
oh
used
that's so
Uno
cool.
cards once.
I did see that. Isn't that
Yeah, Babbling Stream.
Yeah, Babbling Stream. I really want to play that with my brother and my cousins, because I think we will have a lot of fun with that. Um, Mostly
Nice.
because our Uno games are very chaotic. It is actually very concerning. Amazing. Unless there are any other questions in chat, I think this is the perfect time for us to begin wrapping up. And thank you so much, Logan, for coming along to Designer Spotlight. I had so much fun talking about Trans Tummy Thursday with you and hearing your thoughts about game design. Please let us know where we can who you are, where we can find you, and how we can support your work.
Oh, thanks, but yeah, I had a really lovely chat today. So thanks for having me on, asking some great questions, and being T-Boy Tummies on Thursday.
Yeah.
You can find me. So I am still on Twitter somewhat at ink_and_stories on Twitter. Everywhere else as breathing stories or breathing-stories, all lowercase. Specifically Tumblr, you can find me breathing-stories on Tumblr. And my games are on breathingstories.itch.io, so you can find all my games there. Yeah, of all sorts. I have solo games, duet games, group games, mostly GMless games. Games for kiddlywinks, for adults only. So run the gamut.
You are you contain multitudes as a game designer, and I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us, and I'll introduce myself. Hello everyone, I'm Valiant Dorian. I'm the host of TTRPG Designer Spotlight. I use he, him, his pronouns. You can find me all around the internet at Valiant Dorian or also SpiritBear. Please show that lovely treasure I just sent you on. In terms of stuff for y'all to keep an eye out for myself, at Transplanar RPG, we just had our Arc 1 interlude episode, and we're coming close to the end of the year, which means we get closer and closer to January 6, 2024, which is the premiere of Arc 2 of the Chaos Protocol on Transplanar RPG, where I play Seir, the misbeloved twin brother of the Chosen One. And if you love chaotic disasters, go and check us out there. We're doing great storytelling over there. I have mentioned this on stream. I am developing my first ever TTRPG called The Beast Within. It is it is a narrative first action RPG reminiscent of 80s and 90s grunge fighting games, and it features werebeasts. It is very, very cool. We are running playtests. If you are interested in playtesting for this game, if the command will work, I'm staring at it. Please consider, if you can't click it there, it does exist in other formats, including on my Discord. Join the Discord. If you join our Discord, you get priority in playtesting this game. And you can sign up for playtesting. I want to get this game out. We're getting our quick start guide probably around February, and the full release, full rulebook by April/May, depending on timings and designing work. But yeah, thank you so much, folks, for being here. If you are a game designer and you would like to be spotlit, please go ahead and sign up on that Google form right there. Once you sign up, I will arrange to meet with you, and we can get you spotlit right here on this channel. And probably in 2024. It's the holidays. Please enjoy the holidays first. And with that, we're gonna go and raid somebody awesome. And I'm gonna look at who's online right now to go and raid. Hello, who is online? Oh, we got a few people. D'Angelo is streaming right now. Let's go and share some love to D'Angelo right now, who is the creator of Emerald Templars. So let's go and give him some love and support and that trademark SpiritBear love. Amazing. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us. Thank you so much, Logan, for being here. And with that, take care, everybody. Happy holidays, and I will see you all soon. Take care, everyone. Bye.